Have you ever heard of an energy-neutral house made of recycled paper? If not, today will be your first. But first up, hello and welcome to a new edition of Echo World Africa from Lufasi Park in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's take a look at what we have for you today. We'll be taking you to a northern European island that generates all its own energy from renewable sources. We will meet some students who are working against drought and desertification in Niamey, that's Niger Republic, and we will find out how solar lamps in Rwanda are facilitating the lives of fishermen. Now, for all their pleading looks, lemurs that look almost like the monkeys, which can only be found on the island of Madagascar, are endangered. In fact, almost 94% of all lemur species are under threat, in part due to habitat loss at the hands of humans. Our eco-hero this week is a professor from Germany. Peter Kappler works at the German Primate Center and regularly travels to Madagascar, where he and his team conduct research into these unique creatures. He has also helped set up an association to help improve the lemur chances of survival. Now let's get back to the monkeys. Where are they?
Autumn in Kirindi Forest. The rainy season has come to an end, and everything is still a lush green in this usually dry, deciduous forest. The lemurs have enough to eat. Lemurs only live in the forests of Madagascar. These men are hot on their tracks. They want to get hold of a sifaka, the largest lemur in this forest. A perfect catch. Now it all goes very fast. The lemur is measured and weighed, and a transmitter is attached to its body.
That's a benefit of marking these animals individually. We can get very detailed information about them.
Peter Kappler is a professor at the German Primate Center of Göttingen University. He has been conducting research into lemurs in Kirindi for more than 20 years and runs the Primate Center's field station in the forest. 8 species of lemur live here, including the extremely rare narrow-striped mongoose. How do lemurs interact with other lemur species? How do they live in their environment? The observers here don't seem to bother them. There are still many questions left unanswered about the behavior of the lemurs. But how much time is left to find out more? Both the forest and its inhabitants are endangered.
It's easily forgotten in this beautiful forest where everything is still intact and natural. But if you go 10 kilometers away in any direction, there's no more forest at all. That's when you realize how endangered all of this is.
This is 10 kilometers away. At a fork in the road, the residents of a nearby village sell their produce, mostly corn, some melons. The forest provides them sustenance, even as they slowly contribute to its destruction.
It's depressing as you can imagine it would be. What's frustrating too is that it's not evil corporations here setting up oil plantations. It's the poor rural population who have to try to make a living somehow.
A nearby village. There are many children here, like everywhere in Madagascar. Its population is growing. People know that the forest is disappearing. It will be here for another 20 or 30 years, perhaps. What then?
We depend on wood. Our houses, the furniture, it's all made of wood. If you want to sell something, it's wood. We also cook with wood charcoal. When there's nothing left, people will move on. That's what will happen.
This region in western Madagascar needs more attention. The researchers have helped set up a nursery where the first seedlings are being planted. The rapidly growing trees will alleviate pressure on the forest. Peter Kappler has promised to donate 30 cents for each tree that is still here in a year.
This is just a drop in the bucket. There are so many children here, and the only hope is that we can raise awareness among them and make sure that they look after the trees, that they develop a sense of responsibility for nature. Otherwise, it won't work.
The researchers will continue their efforts. For Moritz too. He's woken up, set free, and able to return to his group. Preserving the Karindi forest is essential. Otherwise, the lemurs have no chance of survival.
Now, raising awareness for environmental protection is hard work, but it can be made easier by exposing children to the issues. One man, Shola Adekoya, understands the benefits of appealing to the younger generation, which is why he has taken it upon himself to plant trees, to teach the younger generation how to plant trees everywhere he goes. And he's doing his own bit for the environment and also ensuring that these younger ones learn and imbibe the culture of doing their own part for the environment.
Lagos in Nigeria is a megacity and a concrete jungle. Sola Adekoya wanted to do something about it, so he founded Shodex Garden. It's a botanical garden, plant nursery, and education spot, all in one. He started 23 years ago, and by now has planted over 1,000 species. He teaches students how to plant and nurture trees, and offers tourists a place to relax in the crowded city. Additionally, he sells plants and provides 20 people with jobs. Every tree planted raises the quality of the air they breathe. Do you like that? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We'll share your stories.
And how about this? For someone doing their bit, a Swiss architect has come up with a novel way to make houses more environmentally friendly, both in terms of building materials and energy supply. He has spent almost 30 years developing a unique system that enables the construction of house from recycled paper. Sounds impossible? It's not. Let's take a look.
St. Margrethen is a picturesque little community on the Swiss border to Austria, where locals appreciate the pedestrian pace. That changed, however, when 2 new houses sprang up in the space of just 4 days. And witnesses testified to having seen only 4 workmen, with neither a crane nor any other heavy machinery at their disposal for the shell construction. Right now we're doing a wooden facade like the one back there. The plasterer is doing the interior, and then we're almost done. Just the electrics, plumbing and heating, and you can move in. Practically anyone with a little DIY knowledge can build a house like this. And it's all possible thanks to a new material called EcoCell. Architect Freddy Iseli spent 20 years developing the wood and cardboard composite before it was ready to go into production. Here we have a wall structure and an end profile. It's relatively easy to slot them together, and then your profile is in place. The EcoCell boards are largely made from paper and are what the walls, ceilings and floors here are made of. The material is light and it provides excellent insulation from the heat and cold. A mineral coating makes the paper fire resistant and waterproof. The boards are manufactured at the company's production plant. They weigh 10 times less than concrete, which remains the most frequently used construction material worldwide. Because the production of concrete is so energy intensive, the building sector is responsible for 7% of worldwide CO2 emissions. An EcoCell factory is far greener, saving the emissions of 10,000 cars per year. The first step is to make honeycombs from the corrugated boards. Then the application of a mineral coating. Then the coated honeycomb structures are placed in a dryer. And finally, they're stuck together to form a composite. And, says the inventor, you don't just have to use recycled paper. Other organic fibers, such as waste coconut oil or palm oil, are also an option. Easily says the total cost of a house is at least 20% under that for a comparable construction built from conventional materials, also because of the prefabricated elements. Under the sheets over there, we have material for at least 4 houses. We'll be erecting them after the vacation period. And that will be in EcoCell's hometown Utwil, in a new settlement that's set to be completely energy independent. Fitted with an array of photovoltaic modules, the buildings will produce more energy than they require. Plus, each home comes with an electric car, charged with that excess power. You don't need an architect to build your own EcoCell home. The modular system allows you to design one yourself. Submit a photo of the model and wait for delivery of the components. Freddie easily dreamt up the system for the sake of the environment, but is now also negotiating with the Swiss and German governments about refugee shelters made from EcoCell. He says the super-light material is ideal for crisis zones. The idea is for us to develop a rapid construction system that enables the production of several thousand apartments a year. And refugees could themselves work directly in production, or at the assembly end, of course. Over in St. Margrethen, the EcoCell boards are now being plastered over with environmentally friendly mud and chopped straw, similar to huts built thousands of years ago.
Many people, and indeed towns, aspire to energy self-sufficiency. But very few regions in Europe have so far managed to achieve that goal. But one Danish island now has enough wind turbines to supply its 4,000 residents. And what's more, they sell the excess power to others. That really is a challenge to rise to.
It's 6 a.m. Time for Jürgen Tranberg to feed his cows. For half his life, he's been a dairy farmer on the Danish island of Samsø. Until 3 years ago, when he sold most of his cows and switched to a new source of income, renewables. Jürgen Tranberg has invested 3.5 million euros in green energy. He took out a bank loan to cover the costs of this wind turbine and a set of solar panels. The bank wasn't difficult to convince. The Danish state guarantees a fixed price for wind energy. The renewable energy also sells well abroad, to Germany for example.
In that time they talk about to close 7 nuclear power, the price was going up, and there I make a contract. Yeah. And anyway that you will get a higher price of electricity. And that's good for me, because every time it's going up, that's good money for me.
Samsø has plenty of wind and good weather conditions. The wind turbines and solar panels are now his main source of income. Tranberg isn't motivated by climate concerns. He needs a financial incentive. That's why his tractor still runs on diesel.
In Denmark, it's we must pay tax of rapsoil, and so that's if I could use rapsoil, but that's much more expensive. So therefore, I use normally diesel.
Tranberg grows maize, which he sells to other farmers on the island. He was one of the first on Samso to take part in the energy project. Now the island has 11 turbines. They produce more electricity than the islanders need. The surplus is exported. In the winter, the locals heat with straw and wood. They've built 4 biomass power plants to utilise the renewable energy source. They also have a solar plant. For Søren Hermansen, it's only the beginning. He's the brains behind Samso's energy model. He wants the entire island to function without fossil fuels. The next project is already taking shape in the energy academy he established. By 2030, vehicles on the island are to operate without producing CO2 emissions.
All this extra production that we don't use, we should use this to charge the battery cars or the electric cars. So in the future, we have already the production, and we can then use this for our own cars instead of just importing it from the mainland again.
In his office, Hermansen thinks about how he can convince the rest of the 4,000 islanders of his plans. Participation in the energy project is voluntary.
It's going to be even harder than the first process, because this is the whole infrastructure, and people love their cars. So to say to them, well, in a few years you will be driving an electric car is also kind of mind-blowing, because people can't imagine it.
The CO2-free policy is also extending to waterborne traffic. Recently, Samso bought a new ferry that runs on biogas produced on the island. If all goes as scheduled, the island could be powered by green energy in just a few years.
Light is essential to our lives. Without it, our ability to work, read, cook, or simply spend time with our families is compromised. But many countries in Africa don't even have access to electricity, either because of poor infrastructure or a lack of money. Hence the need for initiatives such as the one in Rwanda, which uses solar lamps to make life easier for many people.
When the sun goes down in equatorial Africa, it gets dark within minutes. Here in rural Rwanda, there's no electricity. A kerosene lamp is the only way to defy the darkness. 12-year-old Rebecca does her homework in the pale lamplight. A tragic accident when she was tiny scarred her for life. Her mother Vestine will never forget that moment when she left Rebecca unattended.
She was still a baby and was sleeping. I went outside briefly, and when I came back, the kerosene lamp had fallen onto the floor. The curtains had already caught fire. I tried to stamp out the flames so the fire wouldn't spread, and a piece of flaming curtain fell onto Rebecca's face and burned her.
In addition to causing accidents like this, kerosene lamps account for 240 million tons of carbon emissions annually. It's a fossil fuel that damages the climate. So in the capital Kigali, a team of inventive engineers and entrepreneurs are working on an alternative. Samir Haji, the driving force behind the project, Nuru Lights, knows there's a major obstacle.
But the reality is that in 1970, 4% of sub-Saharan Africa had access to electricity. In 2011, it was 10%. 6% added to the grid over the past 40 years. It's not really a fantastic record. And so we recognize that and are trying to develop a solution here that's going to address the problem immediately.
Demand was enormous. But then there was the issue of how to recharge the batteries. At first they experimented with solar technology, but they soon recognized that was too short-sighted.
There are many months during the year, during rainy seasons, for example, where the sun isn't shining as you would expect, and solar isn't the most reliable technology. So, we looked at solar initially when we were doing product development, and we decided that there was another untapped energy source in rural Africa, which has been used for centuries, and that's human power.
Entrepreneurs become energy providers, Their muscle power feeds a simple generator. 20 minutes of pedaling can recharge 5 batteries. That costs 10 cents a light, a fraction of the price of kerosene. The LED lights aren't just brightening up everyday life in the Rwandan countryside, they're also helping to tap economic potential. Daniel is one of many fishermen in the wetlands along the Akanyaru River. He uses soap as bait to catch nocturnal catfish. The bait is prepared during the last minutes of daylight and then set out. As soon as it's dark, the bait has to be taken in again. Many of the fishermen here have now bought Nuru lights. It makes their work much easier.
These LEDs have really changed my life. I used to use an electric torch and had to spend lots of money on batteries. Almost nothing was left for me. You have to understand I was penniless. I come from the street. But now that I can cover my costs, I've been able to buy a house for 250,000 francs. And I can even get married.
Making use of equatorial nights far from the power grid has become easier and safer thanks to LED technology. Rebecca has been scarred by kerosene, but she's looking optimistically to the future. At least the darkness will no longer keep her from studying.
According to the United Nations, the Earth is losing fertile ground at an annual rate of 12 million hectares, which is the equivalent of all the arable land in Germany. And the situation looks set to get worse. To blame are rising temperatures and overuse. Particularly badly affected is Niger Republic, where desertification has crept alarmingly close to the capital, Niamey. A group of geography students are working to stop the trend in their tracks.
This was formerly a village. Now there's only sand. Soil erosion in recent years submerged all the plants. Geographers from the University of Niamey, 20 kilometers outside the capital, are here on a survey. Rakiatou Amadou and Abdoulaye Baba are both specialists on the subject of erosion.
Ici, chez nous, ce qui se passe, c'est que on exploite des vastes espaces.
We in Niger use large areas of land only to cultivate very little. People have to change that. We have degraded everywhere. We put too much pressure on the land, and that's how erosion continues to spread further. We need to change the behavior of the people in order to preserve the environment. 2 kilometers down, the area is reforested. That took years. The geographers are trying to find out about the plants that grow the fastest here. That's the only way they can help farmers find food for their animals. We have these trees here now. Through this work, we now have groundwater here. Now you can see the regeneration and the effects. The soil is fertile again. The water flows back to the river and the groundwater level is now filled up. Sani Ibrahim did his doctorate in Germany and has now returned home. He wants to help with the challenges, but he is still waiting to be employed. My friends from Germany said I'm the first crazy African they've met. Everyone wants to go to Germany, but I wanted to come back home. I told them that my home is in danger, and so I must immediately return because they need me here. The geography faculty in Niamey is one of the largest in the country. Erosion and desertification are two issues young scientists here will be dealing with for years. And they see their future here in the country. There are many schools that opened up recently, also new universities. Those are lots of opportunities for us young scientists. I would really like to do my doctorate. only the third cycle, and then develop myself further. If that works out, she would be the first female doctoral candidate at this institute. Good for the country, because the geographers want to prevent the desert from reaching the capital.
We are back to where we started. That means we are done for today. Well, we'll leave you with a word of advice. Cut down on your energy consumption. Turn off the lights you don't need. Cut down on the amount of water you use. Turn out the water when you're done. Help to protect the environment around you. For more on our coverage of the environment and other issues, check out our website and join the conversations on our social media platforms. Tell us how you're doing your bit for the environment. From Lagos, Nigeria, the Fasi Park, it's bye-bye for now.